Hi there, my name is David Buckley.
Hello there, my name is Nathan Mayall.
The project that I've been working on with my coding partner Nathan is a game deal finder, which we've called Game Under. Our site uses an API to find the best price for a game based on a simple search query. So as you can see, it's a fairly simple interface, but let's get looking for some games. So our search is case sensitive, but it will suggest things as you type. For The Witcher Wild Hunt. Excellent choice. Now, as you can see, there are a variety of hits, results, that take you to the store. So if I were to click on Steam, that should open in a new window. Excellent. And there's the details. Just close that. Go back to the listings, and I should also say that there is a description, normally, and any news of special offers, description of the game, its features, some screenshots, little animations, who the developer is, which platforms it's on, and who the publisher is. Oh, and also when it was released. But if I want to save this, then I'm prompted to sign in. And that's just using Google Sign In. So now I can do that, and it's automatically added it to my favorites. Yeah, let's have a look at Virtual Reality Fun World. Just a couple of deals here, but still, you get a description, the features of it, its developer, its platforms, its publisher, as before. And again, if I just want to put that onto my favorites, then I can do. And there you go, there it is. Each of the games has, as well as the name and its price, it has the unique game ID as well, which is part of the API. Go back home. And these four will always be different. Every time you refresh the page, it'll come with 4 random deals. So it's a great way of just keeping abreast of all the latest deals, things you might be interested in, all that sort of stuff. And that is Game Under. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so thanks for this tour of the site, Dave. We'll get into the code now and the structure of the project, how we built it. So as you can see there on the screen, we have a total of 101 commits so far and just over 1,500 lines of code. So pretty impressive between us both there. We have all our configuration files in the root of the project. We have a total of around about 15 dependencies, so quite a lightweight project. Makes it quite snappy on the front end, primarily being Next.js, which is a web framework built on React. So to start with the front end code here, we are in the root component. So this is the template that Next.js will render all pages to. So all pages have got a title of Game Under. We're using Axios because we need to define a base URL from the environment variable. We're using Firebase as the backend. We're importing a global style sheet along with some icon glyphs. And we're also giving every page a footer and a navbar. So if we go into the index now, we're using a few different components that we've built in this folder here, and we've got a funky function on Next.js, which is really good. It's called getServerSideProps. So just an overview of what this code is actually doing. We're getting the statistics data of how many games we're holding on the server. So, we're currently holding 10,000 games or something like that. And we are fetching 4 random games from Firebase. That's where they'll display in the front end in the 4 blocks. So this random key is actually just a randomly generated ID that Firebase kindly gives us. Okay, next topic I wanted to talk about is user authentication, which Firebase actually makes really easy for us. So when I click this little sign in button, I get a pop-up. It's very brief. I'm already registered on the system, and then my little user page comes there. If I extend the page out a little bit, I get welcome Nathan, but for responsiveness, it's omitted below a certain width. So with that, we have a sign in with pop-up with a Google Auth provider. So that's the little action which is dispatched when we click the button. And then when we have a user, we're using this use auth state function here. So we are determining if there is currently a user in session on the front end. And then if there is, then we're putting the name, or their first name, into the little text there. So it's all a mix of use effect, use state, the standard React tools. So in this Firebase component, we have the actual initialization of the whole Firebase system on the project. We check first, this is a problem in development, you see, so we check first that there's not already a Firebase instance running, because it seemed to crash the development server. So we just made sure there was 0 apps running before we tried to initialize another one. And then we export the auth function from Firebase along with the Google Auth provider, the Firestore, which is very useful for retrieving the game records, and then this function here which I created, which was if a user logs into the website, then in the Firestore there is a new document created with the information about the user so that it is persistent in the database. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to touch on is the real-time search that we developed here. So if I search for Hell, for example, I do like the game Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, but every 250 milliseconds the result is retrieved from whatever's in the string at the minute. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the favorites function. How when I click my user icon, I'm taken to the me page and all my favorites load in. Well, where does that come from? Is that Firebase, etc.? So it is. However, on the front end, the endpoint is actually /API/user/favorites. And then along with that request, we send some headers with the authorization bearer with the user ID there from Firebase. So it's just a little bit of extra protection. It's not unhackable, but it stops random people from trying to guess usernames and whatnot. So we'll move into the back end now, where we go into users favorites. So this NC is a little package called NextConnect, and it basically provides express routing into the Next.js backend. So for example, you declare your favorite handler here. We do want the parameters from the URL, and these are functions. For example, if we only have a get handler, but we send a post request to that endpoint, well, what's going to happen if there's an error, or what's going to happen if the protocol isn't matched? Well, these functions run. They just basically send a response back and say that method is not permitted or something like that. So we get a user ID from the headers, and if there's no user ID, then we'll send a 401 unauthenticated, and then we retrieve the favorites array from Firestore. So we're awaiting the requests of the favorites where the UID matches the user ID supplied to us, and then we're getting all of those, and then we're pushing them out to the front end. Okay, so the next and arguably the most important feature of the site is the information about the games. So how do we get the pricing, the description, the pictures, etc. So on the URL, we have /game/512300, and that's the internal ID of the game. So that is in Firebase somewhere in one of these, and we destructure that game ID from the parameters, the URL that we just said. So then we use a Steam API to retrieve the description and any thumbnails and general information about the game, also the retail price, and a rich description. Developers, platform, publishers, etc. So all that data is in this one. And then next API we hit is one called Cheap Shark, which we can work with Steam IDs on Cheap Shark, so we get information about that game, and in that response is an array of stores where we can hit. So we need to see what stores the game is sold into. So for example, all these here. And then from each store, we'll append a URL, which we'll send in the response, along with the URL for the icon of the game. And then when the user clicks it, they'll be redirected through this API and then taken to the relevant store page. So appreciate you sitting through that brief coding tour, and you can now visit the site. It's live on my home server, and it's at gameunder.store. So you can see it there in the address bar at the top. And thank you.